The arrival. The observatory sat silent on the Chilean mountainside, its massive telescope pointed toward the constellation Draco. Inside, astronomer Maria Vasquez noticed something that made her coffee mug freeze halfway to her lips. The data streaming across her screen showed an anomaly she had never seen before in her 20 years of deep space observation. Multiple objects were moving through space at velocities that challenged everything she knew about physics. She set down her mug with trembling hands and recalibrated the instruments. The readings remained the same. 17 distinct objects, each larger than any asteroid, were heading directly toward Earth. They moved in perfect formation, accelerating and decelerating in ways that no natural celestial body could. Maria's throat went dry as she reached for the emergency contact phone. This was it. The moment humanity had both dreamed of and feared. We were not alone, and they were coming. Within hours, every major observatory on Earth confirmed Maria's discovery. The objects were artificial, massive, and would arrive in Earth's orbit within 96 hours. President Chen Wei addressed the world from Beijing, her face calm despite the weight of her words. Citizens of Earth, today marks a turning point in human history. We have confirmed the approach of 17 vessels of unknown origin. While we hope for peaceful contact, we are preparing for all possibilities. The preparation was frantic but organized. Military forces worldwide shifted to high alert. Scientists worked around the clock analyzing the approaching ship's energy signatures. In underground bunkers, government officials drafted protocols for first contact. Meanwhile, ordinary people did what they always did when faced with the unknown. Some prayed, some partied, and some simply went about their daily lives, refusing to believe that everything was about to change. Colonel James Mitchell stood in the command center of the International Space Defense Station, watching the tactical displays with growing concern. The approaching vessels were each the size of a small city, constructed from materials that reflected radar in impossible ways. Their hulls seemed to shift and ripple like liquid metal, making accurate scans difficult. Whatever technology powered them was beyond anything in Earth's arsenal. Mitchell had commanded forces in 3 different wars, but he had never felt so outmatched. The ships entered Earth orbit exactly 96 hours after their discovery, taking positions that gave them clear firing lines to every major population center. They hung in the sky like dark omens, visible even in daylight as shadows against the blue. Then, without warning, every electronic device on Earth simultaneously received the same transmission. The image that appeared showed a reptilian face with scales that shimmered like oil on water. Golden eyes with vertical pupils stared out from the screens. The creature spoke in perfect, unaccented English, though its mouth movements didn't match the words. Humans of Earth. I am War Commander Kairos of the Draconian Supremacy. Your planet contains resources vital to our empire's expansion. You have 1 rotation of your world to surrender unconditionally. Refuse and we will take what we need by force. The transmission ended as abruptly as it began, leaving billions of people staring at blank screens. In a secret research facility beneath the Nevada desert, physicist Dr. Robert Chen worked frantically with his team. They had been studying the energy readings from the Draconian ships, looking for any weakness. The vessels used a form of crystalline technology that channeled energy in ways that seemed to violate the laws of thermodynamics. But Chen had noticed something interesting. The crystals vibrated at specific frequencies, creating harmonic patterns that reminded him of his daughter's violin practice. Above ground, the deadline approached. Earth's leaders had sent messages requesting negotiation, offering trade agreements, even suggesting shared technology development. The Draconians responded with silence. As the final hour ticked away, people gathered in streets and squares, some defiant, others resigned. Families huddled together in their homes. Soldiers manned their posts, knowing their weapons were likely useless against the alien technology. The attack began precisely at the deadline. Beams of violet energy lanced down from the Draconian ships, striking military installations first. Airbases vanished in clouds of superheated vapor. Naval vessels melted into the ocean. The most advanced fighter jets Earth could launch were swatted from the sky like insects. Within minutes, humanity's military might was reduced by half. The Draconians then began landing operations, their smaller craft descending like locusts. The landing sites were strategic, chosen for their proximity to natural resources and population centers. From each landed craft emerged Draconian soldiers, standing 9 feet tall and covered in natural armor that bullets couldn't penetrate. They carried weapons that fired bolts of energy, turning whatever they hit into clouds of atoms. Resistance seemed futile, but humans fought anyway. In the streets of New York, London, Tokyo, and Mumbai, ordinary people stood against the invaders with whatever weapons they could find. Captain Sarah Thompson of the Australian Special Forces watched through her scope as a Draconian patrol moved through the ruins of Sydney. She had noticed something odd about their behavior. The aliens moved in perfect synchronization, almost like they were connected somehow. When one turned its head, the others adjusted their positions automatically. She reported this observation up the chain of command, not knowing it would prove crucial. In Nevada, Dr. Chen made a breakthrough. By analyzing recordings of Draconian communications, he discovered that their technology and possibly their biology relied on quantum entanglement through crystalline structures. The crystals in their ships, weapons, and even their bodies were all connected in a vast network. If that network could be disrupted, it might affect their entire force simultaneously. But creating such a disruption would require generating a specific resonance frequency at enormous power. Engineer Lisa Park received Chen's data at her facility in South Korea. She had been working on experimental sonic weapons for crowd control, but Chen's discovery gave her technology new purpose. If they could modify her sonic generators to produce the exact frequency Chen had calculated, they might have a weapon against the Draconians. The problem was power. To affect the entire invasion force, they would need to generate a resonance field that covered the whole planet. The solution came from an unexpected source. Teenager Marcus Williams, a ham radio enthusiast from Detroit, suggested using Earth's own magnetic field as an amplifier. By positioning modified transmitters at specific points along the magnetic field lines and synchronizing their output, they could create a planetary-scale resonance effect. It was insane, impossible, and their only hope. Within hours, the plan was approved, and teams worldwide began working on the transmitters. As the Draconians continued their systematic conquest, taking city after city, humanity worked in secret on its desperate counterstrike. Scientists, engineers, and ordinary people came together, sharing knowledge and resources across old boundaries. Former enemies worked side by side, united by the common threat. In hidden workshops and underground facilities, the transmitters took shape. Each one had to be perfect, as a single failure could doom the entire plan. The Draconians, confident in their superiority, paid little attention to the scattered human resistance. They had conquered dozens of worlds, and Earth seemed no different. They established processing centers where they extracted rare minerals from the ground and harvested biological samples from captured humans. Their commander Kiros reported to his superiors that Earth would be fully pacified within 30 rotations. He had no idea that in those scattered pockets of resistance, humanity was preparing to show the universe why Earth's children should never be underestimated. Time was running out. The Draconians had conquered nearly 40% of Earth's surface. Millions of humans were in captivity, and millions more had died in the fighting. But in the shadows, the transmitters were nearly ready. Dr. Chen's calculations had been checked and rechecked. Lisa Park's sonic generators were in place. Marcus Williams' amplification theory had been tested on a small scale. Everything hinged on perfect timing and coordination. One chance, one moment to strike back. The resistance forces prepared to activate humanity's last hope. The disappearance. The first test of the resonance weapon took place in the Australian outback, far from Draconian sensors. Captain Sarah Thompson's team had secured a damaged Draconian fighter craft, and Dr. Chen himself had flown in to oversee the experiment. They positioned a small transmitter 50 meters from the alien vessel and activated it. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the fighter began to vibrate, its crystalline hull resonating with the frequency. Cracks appeared across its surface, spreading like a spider web. Within 30 seconds, the entire craft collapsed into glittering dust. Chen stared at the remains, his face pale with both excitement and fear. It works, but we've only tested it on dead technology. We don't know what it will do to living Draconians. Thompson picked up a handful of the crystal dust, watching it slip through her fingers. Then we better make sure we get it right the first time. We won't get a second chance. The data from the test was immediately transmitted to resistance cells worldwide. The weapon worked, but it would only be effective if deployed simultaneously across the planet. In occupied Paris, resistance leader Jean Dubois received the transmission in his underground hideout. His team had been protecting one of the transmitter sites. hidden beneath the ruins of the Eiffel Tower. The Draconians had destroyed the landmark on their first day, but its twisted metal now provided perfect cover for their operations. Dubois studied the activation protocols, memorizing every detail. The plan called for synchronized activation at precisely 1200 hours GMT, 3 days from now. Every transmitter had to activate within the same second, or the resonance field wouldn't form properly. The Draconians, meanwhile, had begun to notice increased resistance activity. War Commander Kiros stood in his command ship, reviewing reports of sabotage and raids on supply convoys. The humans were proving more resilient than expected, but it mattered little. His forces controlled the skies and most major cities. These resistance actions were merely the death throes of a conquered species. Still, he ordered increased patrols around Draconian installations. Something about the pattern of human activity troubled him, though he couldn't identify what. In the ruins of Moscow, engineer Yuri Volkov and his team worked frantically to complete their transmitter. They had lost 2 team members to Draconian patrols and supplies were running low. The device required precise calibration, and even a small error could cause it to fail. Yuri's daughter, Anna, barely 16, worked beside him, her small fingers perfect for the delicate wiring. "Papa," she asked quietly, "will this really work?" Yuri paused in his work, looking at his daughter's dirt-smudged face. "It has to, little one, it has to." Across the Atlantic, in the hidden laboratory beneath New York's Central Park, Lisa Park made final adjustments to the master control system. Her sonic weapon technology had been adapted and improved by scientists worldwide, each adding their expertise. The final design was elegant in its simplicity. By creating a standing wave at precisely 7.83 Hz, the exact frequency of Earth's natural electromagnetic field, they could use the planet itself as a resonator. The Draconians' crystalline technology would be unable to escape the effect. Young Marcus Williams had been recruited to help coordinate the global activation. From a bunker in Colorado, he monitored communications between resistance cells. His job was crucial to ensure every transmitter activated simultaneously. He had written a simple program that would send the activation signal through multiple redundant channels. As he worked, he thought about his younger sister, captured in the first days of the invasion. This was for her, for everyone taken by the Draconians. 2 days before the planned activation, disaster nearly struck. A Draconian patrol discovered the transmitter site in Tokyo. The resistance team there, led by former businessman Takeshi Yamamoto, fought desperately to protect the device. The battle lasted 6 hours, with Yamamoto's people using homemade explosives and captured Draconian weapons. They held long enough for the transmitter to be moved to a backup location, but at a terrible cost. Only 3 of the 20 defenders survived. War Commander Kairos received reports of the Tokyo incident with interest. The humans had fought with unusual desperation to protect something in that building. Investigation revealed sophisticated equipment unlike anything in Earth's known technology base. He ordered similar suspicious sites to be investigated immediately. His scaled hand tapped against his command throne as he considered the implications. The humans were planning something. But what could they possibly do against the might of the Draconian supremacy? The night before activation, resistance leaders held a final coordination meeting via encrypted channels. Admiral Rebecca Foster, who had survived the destruction of her fleet and now led the military resistance, spoke from her hidden command post. "Tomorrow we take back our world. Everyone knows their role. If any transmitter fails to activate, the others will be less effective but may still cause damage. We get one shot at this. Make it count." Dr. Chen added his own words from Australia. "The resonance will build slowly. It may take several minutes to reach full effect. During that time, the Draconians will know something is happening. They'll try to stop us. Every transmitter must be defended until the field stabilizes. After that, if our calculations are correct, every piece of Draconian technology on or near Earth will be affected simultaneously." There was a moment of silence as everyone absorbed the magnitude of what they were attempting. The morning of activation dawned gray and cold. Around the world, resistance teams made final preparations. In London, retired teacher Elizabeth Hartley led a group of civilians armed with hunting rifles and cricket bats. Their job was to distract the Draconian garrison, while the real team activated the transmitter hidden in the Thames. In Cairo, former military officer Ahmed Hassan positioned his fighters around the pyramids, where a transmitter had been concealed within the ancient stones. At exactly 1200 GMT, Marcus Williams sent the activation signal. In 347 locations around the world, transmitters hummed to life. The effect was subtle at first, a barely perceptible vibration in the air. But within minutes, the resonance began to build. Draconians throughout the world suddenly stopped, their scales flickering as the frequency interfered with their neural crystals. Their weapons began to malfunction, energy beams firing randomly or not at all. War Commander Kiros felt it first as a slight discomfort, then growing pain. The command crystals embedded in his skull began to resonate, sending conflicting signals through his nervous system. He roared orders to his subordinates, but they were experiencing the same effect. On his viewing screens, he watched in horror as his proud invasion fleet began to shimmer and vibrate. The resonance was spreading through the quantum entanglement network that connected all Draconian technology. The effect accelerated exponentially. Draconian fighters fell from the sky, their pilots unable to control systems that were tearing themselves apart at the molecular level. The massive command ships in orbit began to break apart, their crystalline hulls fracturing like glass under a hammer. On the ground, Draconian soldiers collapsed, their armor disintegrating, their weapons crumbling to dust. The processing centers exploded one by one as their power cores destabilized. In his disintegrating command ship, Kiros managed one final transmission to the Draconian supremacy. Earth. Impossible. They found the frequency. Do not come. The humans. Then his ship vanished in a brilliant flash of light, visible from the ground like a new star being born and dying in the same instant. Within an hour of activation, every piece of Draconian technology had been reduced to crystalline dust that sparkled in the air like snow. The aftermath was surreal. Where massive alien ships had dominated the sky, there was now empty space. Where Draconian soldiers had stood, only piles of crystal dust remained. The invasion that had seemed unstoppable, that had brought humanity to the brink of extinction, had been ended in a single hour. Around the world, people emerged from hiding, blinking in the sudden freedom, hardly able to believe what had happened. The cleanup took months. The crystalline remains of the Draconian technology proved useful, containing rare elements that advanced human science by decades. The shared struggle had united humanity in ways that no peace could have achieved. Former enemies worked together to rebuild, sharing resources and knowledge freely. Earth had survived its first contact with a hostile alien force, and the universe had learned that humans, when pushed to the brink, could achieve the impossible. The resonance transmitters were maintained and improved, ready for any future threat. Earth stood ready, no longer alone in the universe, but no longer defenseless either.